Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is all about books and the best ones for paranormal investigating. There's been a ton of these books. There's so many different types of books that have been out for paranormal investigators, but the really good meaty ones, the ones that really kind of help you with what's happening out in the field is awesome. Oh, hello, Kat. Good to see you, sweetheart. So these are the top 4 at the moment that I have at them. I've read and have come through and got a lot of information from as well. So again, I also give my reasons as to why I've actually thought these books were worthy of being reviewed as well. So by all means, as I said, I will post links to these as well. As I said, this is a lovely change of pace as well. It's not so deep and dark as demonic, although the first book is about demonology. It has to be as well. Hi, Adam. Good to see you. Hi, Anne. Good to see you here as well. So, yeah, this is the kind of information that you can take out. And, of course, the reasons as to why this information is very beneficial for you as well. So the first book I shall start with is the Sumerian Exorcism. Light and fluffy. Yeah, this is by Bellinger. She is a gorgeous lady. I met her a couple of years ago. She was on Paranormal State as one of their psychic mediums. It's a really good book because she's, I'd take my hat off to Michelle for kind of bracing and broaching the darker side of the occult. So she kind of goes into the exorcism side, into psychic vampires and things like that as well. So she's quite well known, quite well researched in those particular subjects too. So that's why I think these books are really, really interesting. And this one, it's Sumerian Exorcism. What the hell is that? Good question. The reason is the Sumerian are very much around the same time period as the Babylonians as well. So we're talking ancient history type stuff, thousands and thousands of years old history, that in a particular place called Mesopotamia, which was where basically the birth of the world was basically, and there's information in the first written language there as well. So this is the beginnings of the belief of life after death. So that's why I think this is important, one of the reasons. Another important reason is she goes into the beginnings of demonology too, and the fact that how demonology was used even back then as a way to explain how bad things happen to great people. There are prayers in here as well that are and rituals that are thousands of years old that have been translated too, which is amazing. That's probably like half of that. So there's a good chunk of it. So there's protection for a child. There's one, so say for instance, it was this one, afflictions of dark magic. So it's not all negative, bad stuff in here. Not sure if I should have or read this book, but it's actually really good in the sense where there's also protection prayers against the negative as well as enticing them out and being rid of them as well. Now you'll notice here too, she's got magic, demons, and the lost art of Marduk. So that's really interesting because Marduk is the Sumerian art of spirit clearing. So that's a kind of, it's not really a full exorcism. It's more the fact of an entity being removed when it's not being needed. So very, very interesting as well. Again, it's a very old art form for that's used with regards to the rituals for this. It's fascinating from a historical perspective. Again, why do I think this is important for paranormal investigators to know about? I think it's really important to know the beginnings of history and where our thoughts are about the good old, demon, because let's face it, demons sell. It's a hot topic. It has been a hot topic for a while. And I think that books like this are really, really important because they go into the factual information of what had started long before Christianity or the Catholic Church took a hold of demonology and made it into what they have today. So really important. Trust me, if you bought it, and even though it's got prayers in it, nothing's going to happen. You'll be fine. Trust me, nothing's happened to me. So it's Sumerian Exorcism, really fascinating, interesting look. So I'll post the link for that, of course. Next one is How Not to Be a Ghost Hunter. This is by Shannon Bradley Byers. I have met also Shannon as well at last year's Scarefest. Lovely, lovely lady. Brainy and vibrant and beautiful. But also, apart from that, one thing I really loved about this book is the front cover. Now, if you look at it, you'll see, if I can, there's an orb there and there's an orb there. But what she's done, she's actually named them. So she's kind of said, this is the cave witch, and this is so obviously how not to be a ghost hunter is actually name your orbs on a photo. So already this got me chuckling at the book stand, that's for sure. Really great book. If for those of us who investigated for a while, and if you wanted to put your practical information down into a book, this would be it. It's not a huge book, so it's great. You can actually, it's good practical information. You don't feel like you have to read War and Peace just to get to the facts. I really, really loved it. She talks about her experiences as well, which is really important. So it's not just from a perspective of, oh, well, look, you know, this is what you do, this is how you do it. It's like, this is the reasons as to why. And she, you know, even from the point of, I think she was going to the opera with her husband at one point, and the doorbell rang, and she has a good relationship with the police in her area as well because of the work that she does. And she ended up, obviously saw the police at the door, but was a little bit panicked. She was wrapped up in a towel, just come out of a shower. He was about to go in as well. So she's like sort of like half dressed, sort of half towel around the head. The girls who know how that works. And, you know, what it was the fact that police wanted her business card because there was a funeral home further down the road that were experiencing activity. So she's been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt many times. And I love the fact that she's very, very historical focused. I'm always a big fan of investigators having a specialty about them. For me, it's anomalistic psychology, which is the whole debunking possible plausible explanation. For some people, it might be mediumship. For some people, it might be the technical side of it, how to build equipment to see if there could be ways to communicate with the possible afterlife. So I think it's really important to have an area of specialty with each investigator. And for Shannon, it's definitely for her research as well, which, of course, you know, this book goes through all different types of topics. So you've got client interviews, you've got information about how to do client interviews, pre-investigation research, of course, which is very, very important. It's got really helpful websites. They are US based mainly, but the fact that they're there, we can, as investigators for here, particularly in Australia, and you can actually look and see whether or not there might be an equivalent here as well. She also has a big section on safety too, which is vital. And I know it may seem as boring as batshit, but it is really, really, really good to know your safety, to know how to be safe and keep your members of your team safe wherever you go, regardless whether it's a private, residential or public location. She's even got pictures in here. So for me, I work in engineering and construction as well as doing this fantastic paranormal stuff. So I know what asbestos looks like. Thank God I've not seen it yet. But not everybody does who works as or is interested in the paranormal. So she's got pictures of things like that as well to be aware of, mold, all that kind of stuff. There's also an equipment section as well, which is really, really good. And also she's got ideas for different forms, which can be like, you know, a needle in a haystack when you're first starting out. And there's some great websites out there. But with the, I mean, say for instance, for an example, she's got things like, you know, a permission to investigate form as well. So there's some really good stuff in here, really like practical, helpful stuff, and I really, really love it. So why do I think it's really good for paranormal investigating? Because it's probably factual without any of the hoo-ha. It doesn't go into why we have hauntings. It goes to what to do when you're investigating, and that's my biggest love. So that's why I really love this book. I will again obviously post the link to this for you guys to have and have a look at. Again, it's available on Kindle too, because for those of us who live all around the world, may not have the patience to wait for a book to arrive, especially the way the postal service is, particularly in Australia. The next book is called Paranormality by Professor Richard Wiseman. I may have mentioned this before in one of my previous reviews, only because I just really, really love it from the sense that it looks at the scientific reasoning for why certain paranormal activity does happen. He looks at topics like fortune telling, out-of-body experiences. I think he's got in there ghost hunting, mind control, all types of stuff like that. I think it's really important for us as investigators to understand the scientific reasoning for this kind of phenomena, and this is what this book explores as well. So it's a bit more of a full-on read. It may not be quite a weekend like Shannon's one. This is probably more like maybe a month if you're really, really busy. One thing I like also about this book is that it goes through exercises. So he doesn't just talk about the cases that he's dealt with, which is really important. He also has exercises in here as well, which is kind of like things to test your mind, to what it'd be like to try and insinuate reading somebody's mind, things like that. And I think it's important to have exercises that you can actually do. What I like about this is that the fact that these exercises could probably be used as possible experiment ideas as well. So he's kind of giving away a couple of clues here in this particular book. One of the most well-known psychologists that are involved in the paranormal as well. He also is quite well-known and a lecturer at University of Hertfordshire, which is near my part of England where my family's from, so high five to that. So yeah, it's a great book. He does talk about one particular case which I was fascinated about which was Hampton Court Palace in the UK, for those who know. King Henry VIII had a wife who apparently had cheated on him, and when she found out she was going to be beheaded, she runs along this particular hallway, which is called the Haunted Gallery. And with that being the case, other people have actually seen this particular entity come through and running along over quite a few years. So he was asked to investigate it, which I'm so jealous about. Excuse. So he was able to do that. But the thing is, though, I'll read a section of this book which talks about what we know as investigators as the stone tape theory, which is what this would have been attributed to. So many people would have thought, well, seeing Catherine running up the hallway, screaming at the fact that she's going to be beheaded, it would definitely, and if it's been replayed and seen by others, it would be, residual / stone tape theory. So what we'll do is we'll have a quick squizzy at what his explanation to what the stone tape theory is. Now he says, first, the idea is quite literally a work of fiction. In December 1972, the BBC broadcast a Christmas ghost story entitled The Stone Tape, written by Nigel Neal. The play centres on a group of scientists investigating an old haunted house. The researchers discover that the stone is in one of the rooms is capable of recording past events, and that the alleged ghosts are actually those recordings being replayed. Curious to discover more, the team carry out various experiments and, as often as the way with fictional science meddling with the unknown, unwittingly released a malevolent force into the world. The second problem with this theory is that it's completely implausible. As far as we know, there are no way that information about events can be stored in the fabric of a building. And the third and final problem, and from a scientific perspective, this is perhaps the biggest stumbling block, is that there is not a shred of evidence to suggest that this is true. Now that feels like eating a lemon, doesn't it? So if it feels like eating a lemon, good, because we need to be challenged by stuff that is against what we sometimes wholeheartedly believe. So I'm getting more used to liking reading information that is quite opposite to what I would normally have thought and or have believed. So again, I really like this book for that reason. I think it's really important for investigators. Why? Because I think it's we need to understand the scientific explanations currently for what it is that we experience and other people experience. Is really important. So that's for Paranormality. Again, I'll post the link for that if you're game enough. And of course, something on a more serious note as well is the fact that this particular book is called The Mental Health First Aid Manual. Now, I know some people are like, oh, do you really need to know about that if you're going to be kind of just doing public locations and the likes, or not really into private cases? Yes, you do. The Mental Health First Aid in Australia do have this particular manual. Of course, this is where I've got it from. I've got the 3rd edition here. There's the 4th edition already out, which was released last year. And I know that there's a similar type of manual in the UK and the US as well for if you ever want to go and do the course. I think you can buy this separately. I'm pretty sure you can. You can contact the website. I will post the link up as well. It is absolutely vital, even just not just from a paranormal perspective, but also from just being human and also, running businesses and just being out in the public. I mean, here in Australia, the mental health system is nowhere near got the funding that it should. So it's kind of almost up to the general public to try and help out whenever is possible almost. So with something like that, I think it's really important to have the awareness of what, someone going through a mental health crisis. And also the best thing about that is actually helping them. So this particular book goes through depression, anxiety, substance abuse. You've got suicidal thoughts as well. What happens to do if you come across someone who's self-harming? So you can start to see how important this information is just from an initial perspective. I mean, obviously we can't diagnose. We don't want to diagnose somebody with a mental illness, but at the same time, having the awareness of what you're dealing with. I mean, how many times have people come across a case where you walk in, you've done the phone interview, you've gone in for a site, chat, talk, walk, and there's evidence of drug use somewhere. So what do you do? How do you approach that person? So this book gives you the clues for this kind of information. And it is amazing. I mean, for instance, this particular part, as you can tell, there's a post-it note, there's a reason. First aid for panic attacks. So, you know, you've got things like how to assess somebody who's having one, how to assist as well. You've got, what if I'm uncertain whether the person is really having a panic attack? Like, it goes into the stuff like all your doubts about whether or not, oh, geez, you know, I'm not sure what the best thing to do here is. You know, what should I say when someone is, the panic attack has ended? So, like, what do you do afterwards? So this is really, really good stuff. And as I said, it's like for all different topics of mental illness, really important to have, even just as I said, a referral as well. And of course, the courses are fantastic. I can't recommend them highly enough. If you need more information for those, let me know. I also know the links to them all around the world in the UK and also the US too. So these are the 4 books that at the moment that I highly recommend for paranormal investigators, for paranormal investigating, the ones that really push you, the ones that really give you the practical advice, and the ones that really dig into the history of demonology as well. I think it's important too. So thank you so much for watching. I will post the links now so you guys can have a look at these and let me know what you think. And if there's any other books as well that you have found have been really, really, really good when it comes to helping you with paranormal investigating, please let me know. Love to know in the comment section when I turn them on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for watching, and do take care.